Redmond's Wrap-Up brought to you by Cigar Fino, the new Cigar Fino, located on Cedar and Knees in Fresno. If you haven't been there, make sure you go there this week. An amazing selection of cigars, unbelievable atmosphere, some of the biggest TVs you'll ever see. There was a great Super Bowl party there yesterday. Can we say Super Bowl party, or we got to say the big game? Whatever it was. Anyway, Cigar Fino brings you the nightly Redmond's Wrap-Up. Tonight, we're going to talk about a couple of things. Predominantly, we're going to talk about the big Pro Football Hall of Fame snub. I will bring up briefly the Super Bowl. And I've seen a lot of analysis and I've read up a lot about it. And it's so funny how myopic people's thinking can be. And boy, I tell you, if you ever want to see the word myopic in practicality, look at it when people talk about sports or politics. Because if you somehow say that Tom Brady is not the GOAT, or you say Tom Brady had a very pedestrian game, somehow you're a New England hater. And then you have the people who follow New England, couldn't tell you who the running back for Steve Grogan was, and then they snicker and they go, look, I got another Super Bowl. And that's okay too, that's what sports is all about. But the truth is, whatever happened to, hey, you know what, it was a boring game. It was certainly not a defensive game. I could talk about that all day. And yeah, Tom Brady does what he has to do and got his 6th Super Bowl. And quite frankly, Bill Belichick probably is an absolute genius. I'm not going to say the greatest coach of all time because there's so many different variables. Nobody could decide. It's good conversation, but nobody can decide because there are different variables. Would I want Bill Belichick coaching my team? Absolutely yes. He has the most patient teams ever. They wait for the other team to make mistakes. They come in with a game plan. They work that game plan. And then they don't make the big error, and they patiently wait for you by disguising some things, laying back to make the mistake. And if you saw my tweets yesterday, and I'm not the person who does our social media. Serge, the hockey guru, is all about that. He does a wonderful job with our social media on FHT. Not all the time, but most of the time, if I do post something, you'll see a DR next to it, so you know it's from me. And I said, look, the Rams were in the game ugly. Gurley wasn't having nearly the game we thought he would. But they went playing the right way, exactly as I said they can win. Why I picked them. Run the clock. Don't give Tom Brady the ball. Do some things, get in his face. Now, they didn't really get in his face, but he wasn't having a great game to begin with. He threw one pass to Gronkowski, 25 yards, like somehow this is some sort of missile from space. But he did it at the right time. So, two things that you need to look at. There was one time, I think it was either late in the first half or early in the second half. The Rams had the ball at about the 47-yard line. And they needed 2 or 3 yards, and they punted the ball, which I thought was just a terrible idea because it was low scoring. The Patriots have shown them nothing by even giving them a short field because you weren't moving the ball. But then secondly, about 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, game tied 3-3. You have the first possession since tying it up. You have some momentum. Phantom hold call, but you know that's going to happen. Let's forget about that. Instead of if you're going to throw the ball, checking it down, trying to get it to 2nd and 11, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4. You start just chucking the ball up, not wasting any time. Don't give your defense a chance to rest. And I said it right there. That was the turning point. And then the game was over. So, 6 Super Bowls for Tom Brady, outstanding. But again, I don't understand the people who go, they got to say he's the greatest. Or how could you not say, there's a lot to say he's not the greatest. And at the same time, again, I could walk and chew gum at the same time and say that he is a very good quarterback, probably the best right now, is the best right now. But the whole greatest of all time, unless you're Babe Ruth, really? There are too many different variables. And you say the best quarterback-coach combination, maybe quarterback-coach, though, I think Vince Lombardi and Bart Starr might have a conversation about that. Best coach and player ever? I don't know. Casey Stengel, Joe DiMaggio, maybe, 5 in a row. Al Arbor, Dennis Potvin, Al Arbor, Billy Smith. I mean, come on. Can we walk and chew gum at the same time? Let's talk about Bill Russell and Red Auerbach. How many did they win? John Wooden? How many championships did he win? Stop thinking only 5 minutes ago. The world has been around a long time. And it doesn't show any disrespect to whoever it is now to say that, hey, look, they're really good right now. It doesn't diminish it at all. But if you don't say it's a great, you know what it reminds me of? And don't worry, I'll get into Tom Flores in a minute. You know what it reminds me of? Jackie Mason. Jackie Mason has this wonderful, I'm a big Jackie Mason fan. My wife and I got to meet Jackie Mason one time in the city. He has this wonderful routine that if you have a friend, especially from New York or from Brooklyn, you have a friend, no matter where they go, it had to be everything had to be the greatest. That had to be the greatest. You can't just say I had a great time, it was fun. Oh, you should have seen the water. The water was great. Oh, it's so blue. Watch it on YouTube, it's phenomenal. The water's the bluest water. Meanwhile, we live right in Coney Island. Great water, great beach, the whole thing. Warm water. Oh, it's the sand. The sand is beautiful. The food, the plate was so round. That's what it's like sometimes when somebody's a fan, and that's good. Remember, fan is short for what? Fanatic. So, when people talk about Tom Brady, they get into this Tom Brady camp. Why can't you say he's a very good quarterback? He'd be the quarterback that I would want right now for my team. And talking about the greatest of all time, I'm sorry, no, get in line. Get behind Tiger Woods. Get behind Serena Williams, who I think is the greatest athlete overall. I mean, get behind Bill Russell. In terms of quarterbacks in the NFL, all right, there have been a lot that have been pretty damn good. Johnny Unitas, very good. Bart Starr, very good. Terry Bradshaw, very good. And the list goes on and on. But that doesn't mean that you're not a very good player. And as he counts his millions of dollars, and people struggle to make a buck, why are you even having that conversation? Because it's fun. Really, it's fun. Let's talk next level sports. It's okay. We can do that. The commercials, The 100 football one was pretty good. I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the first one with all the cars from all the old movies because I'm a big movie buff. The rest were garbage. You won't hear about them again. Like most Super Bowl commercials, and we watch because we're trained to do so. We watch a few, and a few of them kick, and most of them are garbage. But what's with the robots? What's all of a sudden with the robots again? Everybody has a robot. Here's a robot friend talking about a cell phone, a robot face. The other robots are walking around. The robots are dancing. Why? I feel like I'm watching Fox try to do really bad hockey like they did in the 90s with the robots. Stop with the robots. Nobody cares about somebody, some media guy has an idea. Robots. And then everybody ran to it because everybody's a lemming. Not everybody. And again, not to feel very hateful, but am I wrong? With the robots. Why with the robots? And the halftime show. Yeah, it was what it was. What was wrong with bands? What was wrong with bands? But you know what? You want to put on these great shows, they're great. Maroon 5. Okay. I have no problem with that because, I'm a big, just do what you do. Do what makes you happy. You're not, I am not the judge and jury about what's good, what's not in terms of music or anything else. And quite frankly, shame on those who feel somehow they take the moral high ground when it comes to what's a good movie, what's a bad movie, what's a good quarterback. My only problem is when you say the best of all time. How could you say that? How could you say that? No matter what the sport is, everything is very centric to the era in which they play. Now look, people say it was a defensive game. On some level, okay, yeah, they didn't score a lot of points, but it wasn't a defensive game. Sloppy defense, terrible defense, bad tackling, really bad tackling. The only thing that was worse was the overthrows by both quarterbacks. Missing very open wide receivers. Very open wide receivers, missing them. Well, that's because of the key. No, these guys were wide open. Now, the running backs, I don't know what Gurley was doing, but my gosh, it's like he was biting into a ho-ho before he went into the line. Why was he stepping to the side before he went into the line? And, the Patriots didn't do much better. There were 3 or 4 passes that Tom Brady could have picked off. And their line did okay. Donald did okay. But it wasn't a defensive smash mouth kind of thing where, this was not the Ravens in 2000, 2001. This was not the Steel Curtain, the doomsday defense. But just because you see 3 points somehow was a great defense, was it 1 sack, 1 interception? Pedestrian. I'm sorry. And again, that doesn't make it a bad game. It was a boring game. Boring is spelled B-O-R-I-N-G. Bad is spelled B-A-D. They're two different words and they mean two different things. Boring doesn't mean bad. Saying Tom Brady won his sixth Super Bowl looking like Trent Dilfer, it's not bad. It's a fact. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl with the same kind of game plan. Basically, don't mess up. Who had, by the way, a much farther pass to Brandon Stokely for a touchdown. And he got rocked and quite frankly got traded. But, Tom Brady has the same kind of game. Again, no disrespect to Tom Brady. No disrespect to Belichick. They go in there, and I like that. They're the most patient team, and they jump on your mistake because a person overplays a hand. The Rams could have won that game a couple times. First off, Goff had a terrible game. And you know what? And you got to give some credit to Belichick's defense, sure. Because they were out there playing hard too. But he had jiggy legs. He was overthrown, underthrown, wide receivers wide open. And then he threw that absolute duck. Man, that thing was quacking. That thing took forever. That fluttered down. And you had the Patriot receiver, defensive back, be able to come back and break up the pass. I think you might know the play that I'm talking about. It was terrible. Just terrible. You chuck it up. Sean McVay, did you get out-coached? Yeah, it's Belichick. He out-coaches you. And he out-coaches you with what? Good game plan, discipline, and patience. A lot of things that people who live in the Twitter universe don't have. They just, if you don't see the world exactly their way, it's just, the Rams were an excellent example of that. They just, in the fourth quarter, they decide, after that phantom holding call, they decide to try to throw around the ball, not give their defense time to rest, and that's exactly what happened. And then what do? Well, you have time to score. No, what you do then is have time where you have to pass the ball, and the defense knows that. And Belichick has these guys ready to go. Your time to score was with 9 minutes to go when you had the run-pass option to you, and you had a tie game. Pretty simple stuff. Now, so that's the Super Bowl. I will forget about it in about 2 minutes, and I don't care who has six. You would care if your team had 6 Super Bowls. No, what? Really? Let me tell you something. I'm going to do a whole vlog about this. All right? But I'm going to give a little teaser. Ready? When you are a New York Met, New York Jet fan, a New York Ranger fan, it's not that you're used to losing. We do win. We win a lot more than a lot of other franchises. But I've watched dynasties come and go. I've watched the Knicks lose against Houston when they should have won, and then constantly have to watch the Chicago Bulls. I watched the Mets, as a Met fan, watch the Yankees win every single year. Every year. But you know what? Tip the hat. I hate them, but tip the hat. They played well. Ranger fan, I had to watch the Islanders win 4 in a row. So when I hear people say this hasn't happened before, 6 Super Bowls in 19 years, Al Albert laughs at you from the grave. 4 in a row. Different sport, Darren. Super Bowl. Steelers, 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. Same team. That's why I give most of the credit with Brady and Belichick to just those two, because they're using different people. But, I mean, let's think about things. Let's be historian a little bit. 27 world championships by the Yankees, even though the playoffs were a lot different. What was it? 8, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? Who knows with the Celtics in the 60s? What does that have to do with Tom Flores? Nothing. But let's talk about Tom Flores. Champ Bailey, great player. Don't get me wrong. Ty Law, okay player. Not bad. Hall of Famer, obviously. Gonzalez. The only person that I thought was drop dead should go in was 2 of them. Tony Gonzalez and Kevin Mawai. Now, that's not just because I'm a Jet fan. He played 8 years for the Jets. And not because I coached offensive line in college, and not because I played offensive line in college. The guy was just a stud. You could not go. He was like Mike Webster was with the Steelers and the Chiefs. He was that kind of center. Like, when you thought center, you thought Kevin Mawai. When you thought center, you thought Mike Webster, who horrifically, because of concussion syndrome, died penniless, homeless, under a bridge, literally under a bridge. Terrible. Hall of Fame, under a bridge, dead. Anyway, so Jimmy Johnson, what does Jimmy Johnson and George Seifert have in common with Tom Flores? George Seifert, Jimmy Johnson, not the race car driver, who, by the way, has as many championships as Tom Brady. Shh, because driving 200 miles an hour is a lot simpler. So just stop, people. Stop being told how to think. Think for yourself. You want to support your guy, that's great. I'm a person who's related through marriage. Great guy, great husband, great wife, great people. And you know what? They're big New England Patriot fans, and they love it. And you know what? I love them, and I love how they look at it, because they're like, I'm a Patriot fan. I don't care if it's Steve Grogan or Tom Brady. I'm rooting for the... But that's great. But when you somehow want to, again, level somebody to that next level, and again, I'm sorry, just look at the facts. Look at the facts. Again, let's repeat, for those of you playing at home, the difference between boring and bad. Nobody said it was a bad game yesterday. It was boring. The difference between letting up 3 points and having good defense are two different things. Let's put it into the term of baseball. A bad pitcher comes in and guys give up back-to-back-to-back home runs. Yeah, great, but it was a terrible pitcher. The pitcher has a 7 ERA. Let's look at the fact of you have a goalie who has a fever and goes in there and gives up 4 quick goals. It doesn't mean that that's a high-scoring offense. It means the goalie was crap that night. Please, perspective, folks. Please. A defensive thing, 1 interception on both sides, maybe 1 sack. A lot of, we're going to talk about pressures. Pressures are the poor man's QBR. Such a bad stat. But okay, every team should get pressures. Here's the deal. If you're not getting pressures, your quarterback's having a big day. If you are getting pressures, your offensive line's not having a good game. Thank you. So, again, whatever. Anyway, so let's go back to Tom Flores. So, Jimmy Johnson and George Seifert have both won 2 Super Bowls and are not Hall of Fame coaches. Tom Flores has won two Super Bowls as a head coach, and he's not in the Hall of Fame, which is just absolutely ridiculous to me. And let's work together and try to figure out why. Let's try to figure out why. Oh, by the way, he has 4 Super Bowls. 2 less than Brady, right? Do we have to do everything by Brady? People, stop the hero worship. So, 4 Super Bowls. 2 as a head coach, 1 as a player, 1 as an assistant coach. The only other person who has that is Mike Ditka. And he's in the Hall of Fame. Mike Ditka won his Super Bowl with the Dallas Cowboys, had most of his playing career with, went to the Super Bowl, rather. Excuse me, Mike Ditka, sorry, that was gross. Mike Ditka went to the Super Bowl with the Cowboys. He had his Hall of Fame career predominantly with the Bears and then the Cowboys. Was an assistant coach for a Super Bowl winning Dallas Cowboy team and was a Super Bowl champion as a head coach with the Chicago Bears. Flores has done the same thing, but somehow Flores is not in the Hall of Fame. So why is Flores not in the Hall of Fame? My answer, I don't know. I do know. I don't know. I have my reasons. It's the same reason why Ken Stabler was not in the Hall of Fame until he died. And then somehow, miraculously, these same knuckleheads decided that he wasn't able to get in all these years. Once he's dead and he can't sit there and put the gold jacket on, then you put him in so you can cover your ass. It's anti-rating nonsense. And let's hope that's all it is, why Tom Flores is not in the Hall of Fame. Because NFL, you really need to watch what you're doing. Because explain to me how Marv Levy, he did 4 in a row, don't get me wrong. But again, was that because the AFC was so weak? Marv Levy, 4 Super Bowls in a row which is great, and I think he should be in the Hall. He's in the Hall of Fame. Because we know how much trash the AFC was just like now, back then. I mean, Buddy Brister was the quarterback of the Steelers and then the Jets. I mean, terrible. Pat Ryan? I don't know. Who was the quarterback then? 4 Super Bowls in a row he lost, Marv Levy. And again, I think he should be in. But he's in. Bud Grant, the Purple People Eaters, Alan Page. These guys were phenomenal. Fran Tarkenton, one of the funnest, best quarterbacks I've ever seen. The guy could scramble like nobody's business. Absolutely like nobody's business. Only person I ever see scramble better than him and Roger Staubach was Randall Cunningham, he was just a force. That man could run, throw, levitate. Probably the funnest quarterback for me to watch was Randall Cunningham. So let's talk a little bit about, Tom Flores. Won a Super Bowl as an assistant coach. Won a Super Bowl as a player. Won a Super Bowl as a head coach. Not in. Bud Grant, been to the Super Bowl 4 times. Crushed, and then had the tight game against the Steelers, but couldn't score in the first half, and so he lost 4. But he's in. Nobody seems to question that. But it was so important for Ty Law to get in this year. Wonder why. Troy, I don't know why. So important that some of these other guys got in. Gil Brandt had to get in this year and not Tom Flores. Gil Brandt, I know, yeah, you got the Cowboys. I know. I think he should have been in a while ago, but really? Over Tom Flores? Explain to me why Tom Flores is not in the Hall of Fame. That's the real question. And the only thing to come up with is he's a Raider. That's the only reason I can see why Kenny Stabler wasn't. Because here's the thing, Kenny Stabler was much-watched television. Tom Flores. Now, George Seifert, he gets a notch down. I think anybody who wins a couple of Super Bowls should be in. Right? I mean, I think so. Bill Parcells has 2 Super Bowls, he's in. He's in. George Seifert gets a notch below because that team was so stacked when he took it over. And Jimmy Johnson gets a knock, I don't know, because he created that team. He made the Herschel Walker trade. He's the one who took Troy Aikman. I don't know why he's not in. But I do know this, Tom Flores is not getting any younger. And Tom Flores won 4 Super Bowls. And yes, I live in the area that loves Tom Flores, Central Valley, California, one of our own. But explain to me again why Tom Flores is not in the Hall of Fame. Why? He had a great running back and serviceable quarterbacks. He had some good defense, great offensive line. Those teams rocked. They went down to LA, travel, all that other stuff. These teams were rock solid. Now, he didn't do so great in Seattle, we know this. But, did Vince Lombardi do well when he was with the Washington Redskins? I didn't know that Vince Lombardi was with the Washington Redskins. Didn't know that. I don't know. Happens. Didn't work out. You think Jimmy Johnson's not in the Hall of Fame because of his time with the Miami Dolphins? Probably not. But Tom Flores, interesting. Raider, 4 Super Bowls, 2 as a coach, 2 as a head coach. Not in. Could it be that he's a Raider? Well, you're just saying it. Well, then, if I'm just saying that, explain to me in a clear, concise voice why Tom Flores is not in. Who's better? Who? It's not like it's Belichick. I mean, Belichick, he's laid down. And I could see you not making him a first ballot, though I don't get into the whole first ballot thing. Either you're in or you're out. Well, he's in, but he's not a first ballot. He's in if there's nobody else to choose. No, you're in the Hall of Fame, you're not. Now, I get sometimes if it's a big class, you get squeezed out to the following year, but as a general rule, you're a Hall of Famer or you're not. Tom Flores one of the most memorable historic coaches of the Raiders, I think is not in the Hall of Fame because he's a Raider. Up until last year, doing color commentary for Oakland. I don't know. Why else could it be? Do you have your own thoughts? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Your thoughts? I'd like to hear them. Why is Tom Flores not in the Hall of Fame? Why did this 81-year-old man get snubbed? Why? I want to know. Explain to me who was elected to the Hall of Fame yesterday, why they couldn't put one more person in. Explain to me why not him. There's really no answer other than the fact that, in my opinion, it's because he's a Raider. Because Raiders get treated like garbage by the NFL. Now, you know that with the Raiders, right? The Raiders are going to San Francisco, AT&T Park. I would love to have seen them in Fresno. Now, we knew that was a long shot. 38,000, maybe 40,000 you could squeeze into that stadium. That would have been great because Fresno loves their Raiders. And it would have been nice because we have Darryl LaMonica Stadium right here. I had somebody who said, well, Darryl LaMonica's not actually from Fresno. Look up your facts. Yeah, I know. But the stadium is called Darryl LaMonica Stadium. I don't mean to sound snippy because God knows I make a lot of mistakes. But it would have been great to see him in Fresno. Central Valley loves their Raiders. And they're going to be great in Vegas. Tough to get to AT&T Park, but that might be fun. Playing where, it's funny, at least one team, even though they call themselves San Francisco, at least one team will be in San Francisco instead of the San Jose 49ers. For those of you who don't know where they play, it's just a stone's throw away from San Jose. And again, I like the 49ers. But, truth is, it would be nice to see somebody actually playing football in San Francisco. Next year, that'll be the Raiders. So, Tom Flores is not in the Hall of Fame. Don't know why, other than the fact, if you had to press me, I would say it's because he's a Raiders. It's just Raider hate. It's just this whole to be in the in crowd by the potato chip bowl, you have to look at the world a certain way. You sound like a conspiracy guy. No, proof's in the pudding. Explain to me again why Ken Stabler was not put in the Hall of Fame until he died, and then suddenly, miracle, he was put in. Explain that to me. Explain it. Explain it. Can't do it. Tom Flores, why is he not in? Only 2 other people have 2 Super Bowls, but those 2 people do not also have a Super Bowl win as a assistant coach and as a player. 4. Only other person who's done it, Mike Ditka, Hall of Fame. And you have people like, what's his name? You have people like Bud Grant and Marv Levy, who've gone to 4 Super Bowls, lost them all, but are still in the Hall of Fame. And by the way, I think they should be. They got their teams far. Even though the Bills back then, who were very, very good, Thurman Thomas, Jim Kelly, Cornelius Bennett, the list goes on and on. These guys were unbelievable. They played the Ray offense, I think it was. They did not drain the clock. They kept your defense on the field and did not let you have substitutions. Didn't win the big one. AFC was soft. NFC teams were just better. Just were. Giants were better. Dallas was better. I think the Redskins were better. So anyway, gotta take a sip. So Tom Flores is not in the Hall of Fame. I think it's because he's a Raider. End of story. That's simple. The league certainly is not happy with, even though they allowed him to go to Vegas, what's going on there with, where they're going to play. We found out it's going to be San Francisco. I'm very happy on a personal level for Kevin Mulai. As a lineman, they don't get enough credit. They just don't, and that's okay. But that line, Kevin Mulai, like I said, you think Mike Webster, you think Kevin Mulai as like the prototypical centers. The greatest line of all time, the Hogs with the Washington Redskins. I mentioned the other day, I had a lithograph of a player, and it wasn't Joe Namath. If you looked up over here, I got a Joe Namath over here from the 60s. up there, right there it is, Joe Namath. So, I had a Randy Rasmussen gas station. I want to say it was Sunoco or Shell. Had these drawings and they were beautiful. And that's what I put up. Randy Rasmussen, number 66. Loved to watch him play. Played guard. And that ended up being the position I played. I wore number 68, not 66. But Kevin Hawaii wore number 68. So, yeah, so I was always a big fan of the offensive line from the time I was a child. So, I hope that Tom Flores lives long enough to get into the Hall of Fame. And you shouldn't give it to him before anybody. What, you just going to say, Darren, you give it to him because of his age? No, but it's a variable. It's a variable. Explain again to me why Tom Flores is not in the Hall of Fame. Well, tell me. I don't know why. I don't know why Tom Flores is not in the Hall of Fame, other than the fact that he's a Raider. And if you're going to tell me any other reason, I'd like to know. Because it's interesting. This is Darren Redmond from FHT Sports. Remember, brought to you by the new Cigar Fino. Go see Omar, Big Pete. Go see Chrissy, B-Rad. These guys are unbelievable. They will treat you like a rock star. The Consortium, the 5 guys, they're unbelievable. Watch football there. Well, not until next year, unless you're going to watch that new AFL league, whatever it's called, AFC, whatever it is. We're going to have college basketball on. We're going to have baseball on soon. They have hockey almost every night. Great place to have a nice drink, have a nice smoke, enjoy. So, again, this is Darren Redmond for Redmond's Wrap-Up. The reason that I think Tom Flores is not in the Hall of Fame is simply because he's a Raider. And, I bring you the proof. And show me why he's not. Tell me why he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. Tell me why. And, bring it on. Let's have a conversation. I took a little bit of time talking about Tom Brady and New England Patriots, about that. It's probably the last time we'll talk about that game. And again, let's repeat. There's a difference between boring and bad. There's a difference between good defense and low scoring. Tom Flores. 4 Super Bowls. 1 as an assistant coach, 1 as a player, 2 as a head coach of the Raiders, not in the Hall of Fame. Absolute nonsense.